afternoon, Reynoldsburg. Welcome to the District Lowdown with Dr. Brown. My name is Dr. Melvin J. Brown. You're a superintendent for Reynoldsburg City Schools, and we are thrilled to have you. This show that we've been putting on recently, in each of our episodes, we'd like to welcome a guest to share the lowdown on one unique or important part of our school district. And if you're watching this recorded episode right now, be sure to join us for our next live episodes coming up in a few weeks. Now, let's go ahead and get started. I am extremely excited to talk about who's here today. I'm going to say the special guest for last, but my additionally special guests who are here are our students, who I'm excited to have as well. I've missed seeing all of you guys, so it's great to see you in person. We can't wait to get the year started. So first off, Mr. Julian Heckman, who's a senior at Reynoldsburg High School East STEM Academy and point guard on our varsity basketball team. Ms. Jalea Gamble, a sophomore at Reynoldsburg High School HS Squared STEM Academy and a member of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. Mr. John E. Madison, a senior at Reynoldsburg High School's Encore Academy and a combo guard on our varsity basketball team. Ms. Caitlin Dean, a junior at Reynoldsburg High School's Encore Academy and a member of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. Caitlin has also been crowned as a Reynoldsburg Tomato Festival's queen, so all hail the queen. And Mr. Dejon Jennings, a senior at Reynoldsburg High School's Encore Academy and starting quarterback for our varsity football team. You're captain this year too, right? Yes, sir. All right. These students were recommended by their coaches and district staff to participate in this today's panel, so we're thrilled to have them. Now, last but certainly not least, I'm a little geeked up today because this is taking me back to my youth when we used to bang this music when I was in high school and college. I'm extremely excited to introduce Mr. Todd Thomas, better known as Speech, from the lead singer for the Grammy-winning hip-hop group Arrested Development. Speech and Arrested Development will be headlining our Tomato Festival tonight, and we're thrilled that he was able to give us a few minutes of his time today. So we thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Definitely good to be here.
As we get started, the younger folks don't necessarily know what we know. So can you tell them a little bit about your background and what inspired you to do some of the work you're doing, in particularly with the documentary 16 Bars?
Yeah, so, you know, my mother and father both were activists, still are. And so I grew up around this atmosphere of do what you can with what you have for the people around you. And that's a saying by a young South African boy. And my family raised us that way. So the key was to dig our hands in the dirt, in a sense, and get dirty. You know, strive to find out what you could do in this world to make changes that you see are necessary to be made. And so having that as sort of a childhood thing, when I got to be somewhere around y'all's age, I wanted to do what so many people y'all's age are. You know, I don't know exactly your age. What's the general age, you guys? 17. Yeah, 17, 18. For me, it was around 18, 19 when I decided to become an activist through art. And art is something I'm passionate about and I'm great at, so I figured, okay, let me choose this as my medium for activism. And so, long story short, nowadays, I do numerous things from, you know, rhyming, producing music, touring, all with activism, but then I started to do films, and 16 Bars was my first documentary. I have another documentary called The Nigga Factory. It's on YouTube, it's free. And, you know, so now, you know, all of this is to me part of a bigger plan, which is just to do what I can with what I have for the people around, you know.
Thank you so much, yeah. Having an opportunity to give back to our communities and do something that's going to benefit everybody is something that's missing these days. I see so many areas in which there's no empathy. People think about themselves and nobody around them. It's important that we're able to work together to get things done.
Thoroughly agree with that. Yeah, I do.
So as you guys know, one of our strategic plan initiatives for our 5-year strategic plan is to provide a safe learning community that supports cultural diversity and equity for all. It's a priority for us to conduct and guide discussions around race, gender, ethnicity, and disabilities. As you listen to this conversation, and you hear anything that resonates with you, or you want to learn more, please feel free to share your thinking, your wonders, your resources with your friends, family, and us. And we as district personnel, we want to know as well. Since this show is being recorded, we won't have an opportunity to answer your questions live like we typically do, but we'll be sure to try to get those answers to those questions a little bit later in another venue as appropriate. So before we begin, I want to welcome you all and encourage you to respond and build off each other's questions, their thinking, and all this should flow as a conversation. This is not a formal event whatsoever, which is why we're dressed the way we are. We're completely informal. So let's get started. For those watching, this group of people, we had an opportunity to watch 16 Bars, the documentary that Speech put together. And in the film, Teddy is a character who speaks about building prisons instead of investing in schools. For our panel, let's talk a little bit about how do you feel schools can better support students' behavior so that students aren't in a situation where they're going through the school-to-prison pipeline. And feel free to jump in at any point, I won't call on you.
Well, I feel as though schools should provide outlets for their students so they don't end up in the school-to-prison pipeline. That may be adding in some extracurriculars, getting students involved in sports, different clubs, stuff like that. And I really think that can have a positive impact.
Yeah, going off what Julia said, I feel like if there is more college opportunities and like different opportunities that they could go to college would motivate them more.
I think different pathways. Everybody has a different path and a different journey. And I think just it starts in the community. You know, need more feedback from the people of what we should start doing as far as just different events, getting kids involved. Especially with COVID, you know, a lot of kids don't really have, you know, all the tools and things to source that. To go out and just be around people, and you know, we need more people to bring others up and make sure our community is set as far as just helping each other and being more involved.
I kind of feel like, especially nowadays, there's been a really lack of compassion within our schools, especially when it's teacher-student relationships. And I really feel like, especially with COVID, that that connection has disappeared. So we kind of need to do whatever we can to build those relationships back up.
That is a great point. We've talked, as teachers started back, we'll be starting back on Monday, and as administrators started back at the beginning of August. We talked about being purposeful, about our relationships with kids to make sure there's a sense of connectedness and belonging as you guys come back. The fact that you guys are here having this conversation with us is part of that. We want everybody, every single kid, to have an opportunity to be connected with some adult at school that he or she can go to. Because we all have those days where we're like, I really don't want to do this anymore. Who can I go to that's going to help me do that? That's our responsibility for you. We have to do that for you. So I think that's part of what schools have to be. It's our responsibility to get that done.
Yeah, I agree. And I also feel that, you know, schools have, in a lot of kids' minds, have lost its purpose. I think schools need to become more honest about the history of this country, the injustices that have been in this country from the root of it to now. And I think that, you know, that will engage students to see their need to change things. Mm-hmm. And I think when you see a need to change things, you get engaged on being excellent in learning, understanding, so you can be prepared to change things. You know, there's a very popular topic in pop culture now with critical race theory, right? Where the whole concept is to teach about race from a different point of view than what's been normally taught in the school system. And I think that that's, although I hate the name personally, I love the concept. And the concept is right, which is to teach what I would consider just the truth of history in this country, so that white kids or people that are Asian or Latino or whatever background they come from can become engaged in correcting the wrongs of this nation, and black kids can become engaged in understanding the wrongs of this nation and understand why their existence is so important. Mm-hmm. In this day, in this age, why we're all so important, what we need to be engaged in. You know, I look at history and I see people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or the Black Panthers, whether Huey P. Newton or Bobby Seale, many of them very young, you know, not too much older than you guys. Right. And so what engaged them, though, I believe, was the necessity. They saw the injustice, and then that engaged them to get involved. I think so many times young people are are not aware thoroughly how bad things have been and are, so therefore they don't see the urgency and the need to get involved and to do something different and to create the world that you all will end up living in. So that's what I think.
So important in terms of history and talking about, we all can concede that there's some fantastic, magnificent things that our country's accomplished over the course of its history. But at the same time, two things can be true. We can talk about the positive things, and we can talk about things that were atrocities as well.
Correct.
That's just basically being honest about what's taking place.
Exactly.
I know a lot of folks have thrown out the term critical race theory. We just want to teach history.
Exactly.
We want to be accurate. We want to be real and provide a real sense of what everybody brings to the table and is collectively given to our country to make it as great as it is, and reserving the right to criticize it because we love it
Correct.
and we wanted to see it be better.
Yeah.
So I think those points are so important. And as young people, we expect you guys to step up and do some of those things. Especially those of you on my student advisory council. We got some work to do this year. We're excited about that. This year has been difficult. The last 2 years have been difficult. And so coming back to school, you guys are going to have to learn and do some different things in order to adjust. It's a very different adjustment to coming back to school. What are some things that are in your mind that motivates you to work hard on a regular basis?
For me, it's just the bigger picture. I like to think about that a lot. Like all the little things that will add up to the big thing at the end. So that motivates me a lot. And for basketball, at least, like my dream is to be a professional basketball player. So I just think like the 6 a.m. workouts, the late night workouts, what it takes to do now, that would lead to that big picture.
I think just putting extra time in. In 5 years, you can be a millionaire. Just put the work in. So I think it just starts at home. Going through your day-to-day things, making sure you get things done, being disciplined, being honest with yourself, and putting yourself in the best position to become successful.
I like to keep in mind like my goals and dreams because I feel like if I have something that I can reach towards, I'm more likely to continue doing stuff for that. And
Yeah, I would say my goals definitely motivate me to work hard, as well as my family and my parents, like trying to make them proud. And that's basically what motivates me to work hard.
How about you?
I'll say sports also.
Okay.
Motivates me a lot. Like Julian said with the professional athlete, I do want to go to college to play sports and everything, so I say that motivates me.
Okay. We'll also want you guys to take away the fact that everything's not easy. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's how you grow. When things are challenging, they push you. That's what life is about. That's how you learn. That's how you get better. Our lives aren't easy by any stretch of the imagination. But I know the harder I work, the more obstacles I overcome, the more successful I'll be and people around me will be, because it's my responsibility to help others as well. So don't be afraid of being uncomfortable. That's a good thing. All right?
I thoroughly agree. I mean, for me personally, making it in music was a dream. I come from a small town, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and, no one in hip hop had made it from Milwaukee when I was coming up. And so I didn't have anybody that had already made it. So to me, the idea of making it was, I knew it was far-fetched. You know what I'm saying? I didn't grow up in New York. I didn't come up in LA. And so I knew that I had to be excellent, and I knew I had to work my tail off and really put in everything that I could. And so that motivated me, similar to what you were saying, just looking at the bigger picture, like, if I don't put this in, I know I'm not gonna make it. Like, I have nobody in my circumference has made it, you know what I mean? So how am I gonna make it by just being average? I know I gotta be like above average. I gotta be extra. So that was my motivation, you know what I mean?
Keep that in mind, because
Yeah.
those things will happen.
Yeah.
You never know where people come from or what their stories are. And there's a reason they got to where they are. People helped them get there, but they had to do some things themselves as well.
No doubt.
In the documentary, kind of a shift back to the documentary a little bit, Teddy's mom talks about his support system that was there to help him overcome some obstacles. In your lifestyle, in your lifetime, who provided you with that support system and what did it look like?
It's so many. I mean, my primary support system was my mom and dad. Now, my mom and dad divorced when I was really young, but they did the right thing considering that they got divorced, to support me and my brother fully. You know, like they were very much involved. And then second of all, the community. I mean, my mom had me very involved in the community. So whether it was the, you know, local mailman or whatever, various people really lifted me up and strived to support me throughout my youth. And that meant a lot, you know. Obviously I loved music, so for me, I wanted to learn how to DJ. Well, there was dudes that was 10 years older than me that were DJing already, and they sat and taught a 12-year-old kid how to DJ. It really took their time and taught me how to DJ. You know, that would be my entrance into being a hip hop artist. So without them, I wouldn't have learned it, you know, at least at that time. So all of these things played a big role, and I believe that it takes a village to raise a child. And it's an African proverb, and I believe in that proverb. I feel like all of us play a role in helping each other to get to where we got to get to. Yeah.
Each of you has a type of support system in place for each of you now. Some of your classmates don't necessarily have that type of support system. What do you think kids should do if they're in a situation where they don't have a support system or a circle of people around them? Any ideas that come from your perspectives?
I think communication, just reaching out, having somebody to lean on. I know that's hard for some kids,
Right.
trust issues and how they brought up. Just, I say communication.
Yeah, like what he said, communication, because like, you don't never know, like talking to someone, they can become your best friend, but just
Right.
talking to them.
So
So, just communication.
I think also if you really put purpose into things you're doing instead of just like running through the motions, that people tend to be drawn to people who are motivated and leaders. And if you're able to set that type of like example of yourself, more likely people will come over and you can start like forming a support system.
I just like to piggyback off of what you said. I think having a purpose, so each individual, whether they have a support system around them or not, very likely has something that they want to do. And if you can determine what that is and mark out your purpose, then my advice would be to start looking for people that can help you reach that purpose. And that's going to likely be your tribe or your community or your support system that will start getting you to where you're striving to get to in your life. So have purpose first. Find out what your purpose is.
Yeah, I would say definitely don't be afraid to reach out to others. Like you guys said, communication, reaching out to others if you need help with anything, making your goals known to others.
And don't limit yourselves. You're people in the school district that you may not think are interested in what you're doing, who take an extremely keen interest in what you're doing and want to help you. Don't be afraid to say, reach out to your school principal or me for that matter, anybody. We're willing to do that. We're interested in what you're doing. As you know, I've had a ball sitting here talking with you guys for the last half hour or so. I'm not special. There are people just like me who are very invested in what you do and how successful that you're going to be and want to be a part of that. So don't be afraid to tear down walls and talk to people that you typically don't talk to.
Yeah, I agree.
Looking back on Arrested Development's music, which I had a great time with, like at parties and whatnot, but when you listen to lyrics, you also hear something. The music's always been thoughtful and positive. Can you talk to us about maybe one or two songs that explore some of the things we talked about, some of these issues, and what was the group's motivation to make those?
For us, you know, we looked at the state of Black people throughout the United States in particular, being that that's where we're from, as a state of arrested development, halted growth, you know, from everything from slavery to the numerous mediums of oppression that have been placed on us. We felt like we really needed to reverse that. So we used the name Arrested Development as a reminder of what we were fighting against. And for me, you know, songs like Tennessee, you know, it's a personal song. It was our first single. And it was personal because I actually wrote the song because I lost my grandmother, who I was spending all my summers with in Tennessee. She passed away, and then that same week my brother died. And you know, the last place I saw both of them was in Tennessee at her funeral, actually. And so, you know, songs like that, you write it because of pain, but, you know, as the song progresses, it talks a lot about the journey of Black people. It talks, you know, walk the roads my forefathers walked and climb the trees my forefathers hung from. You know, ask those trees for all their wisdom. they tell me my ears are so young. And so like lyrics like that and points like that sort of take you on a journey throughout the song, so it's not just about me, but it's about the journey of a people and, you know, the trials and triumphs that they face. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's always been about trying to correct that state of arrested development.
Very good. And in terms of the documentary itself, you're also talking there about generational curses. We all can relate to that in some way, shape, or form, but we all come understanding the term from a different perspective, so to speak. Can you explain what you're referring to with generational curses and how might they be different for today's generation?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can look at the film 16 Bars. One of the brothers, when you see the film, you go to his house. He just got released, and he goes to his house, and his mother was a really high up queen pin in the drug game. So he came from that world, and then you walk into the house and you see people literally stoned out. You know, you see,
Devontae.
Thank you, Devontae. This is like a brain. And so, you know, you go to Devontae's house and you see the addiction. You see his mom, you see his family members, and that's an example of a generational reality that he's had to, you know, come up in.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is Anthony in the film, who, you know, talked about the first time, you know, that he sort of snapped in his being was when he saw his mom consistently getting beat, you know, by her boyfriend. And, you know, and he called the police and she said nothing was wrong. And that sort of snapped for him, and that sort of sends him on a whole different trajectory in his life. And so, yeah, I mean, we all have these things, whether as big as that or much smaller things, but they still have a huge impact on the individual that send us in certain directions. And so, for me, similar to what we talked about earlier, you know, reaching out, other things can have a huge impact on you instead of just the things that have had a traumatic impact on you. Things that have a triumphant impact on you can also, you know, make a huge impact in your life and change your trajectory. So it is a matter of reaching out and trying to find different, you know, stimulations and things that move you. Yeah.
And Devontae was a character for me that kind of hit home.
Yeah.
Because we all find ourselves in situations, no matter how extreme they might be, where you can make a wrong choice or bad choice and end up doing something that's really catastrophic to yourself.
Yeah.
But he saw what he was in
Yeah.
and decided to make some other choices.
Yeah.
So when you guys are around situations where you're around people who could potentially make poor choices, maybe they're your friends, maybe your relatives, whomever, how do you bring them to a point where they become more responsible for their choices and you guys being role models? Because, and I'll say that again, because you guys are role models. That's part of the reason you're here.
I just let them know, like, this is a bad choice, it could lead you into something bad, you really don't want to do this. I just let them know.
Accountability, you hold someone accountable, you know, they're gonna take deep thought into what they're doing. And others will take good, like they'll either take the good out of it or the bad.
I always try to make people aware of when they're doing something harmful, like even in a subtle way. I'll be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this, or maybe like you should try to take a different path because this can end up being something really bad. And then if that doesn't work, then I try to distance myself, and that might like make people aware that what they're doing is not the right choice.
Because of course you don't want to be associated with those types of things.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. People are going to make mistakes. We all do. We understand that, and we have to be forgiving from those mistakes. But we also have to learn from those mistakes. That's crucial. Many of the inmates in the documentary mentioned school and a lack of education for kind of steering them down the path that they took. What would you say to your younger selves, looking back at yourself when you were in third grade, or even your freshman year for that matter? What would you say to yourself? To yourself who might need a role model or might need some advice to finish school and improve whatever your future might look like? What are some things you'd say to yourself?
I really think I'd need to make sure my younger self knew that it was okay to struggle and it was okay to like fail at things. Because growing up in the environment I did, I really felt like I had to succeed at everything. And it was really disheartening when I didn't. So I would really want myself to know that it's all right.
I tell my younger self, as hard as it is, you're gonna get through it, and like, people is there to help. Like, I was sometimes scared to ask for help and stuff, so I tell myself, like, you can ask for help.
Yeah, off of what Johnny said a little bit, I would tell myself that don't worry about what other people think about you. Just be you.
I would say set your goals high, and excel past them. You know, you never want to meet your goal; you want to go past it.
Similar to what Caitlin said, I would tell my younger self, like, you don't have to be perfect at everything. And, like, it's okay to struggle, and, like, as long as you're trying, that's what matters.
I think it's so important that the kids understand you don't have to be perfect. No one expects you to be perfect. We, in the school district, we talk a lot about the fact that we want to be a perfect school district, and that's what we work toward, knowing that we'll never get there. That's the whole notion of continuous improvement. That's how you look at your life. That's how you want to look at your perspectives and what you may be looking at as your future transpires down the road. Any last words you guys want to leave us with before we finish up today? As we start the school year on Thursday, when kids come back to the building, which I can't wait, I'm really excited about that. Anything you want to, some wise words from our leaders you might want to say to our kids?
Try your best.
Have fun, don't give up.
Yeah. Keep pushing, and get greater later.
You're rewarded in public for what you do in private.
Ooh,
Don't be scared to communicate and ask others for help.
very good. Speech, any last words you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I piggyback off of what they said. I feel like one of the things I've learned, and I would tell my younger self, is that really school and almost everything you face is really a matter of learning a certain discipline and learning a certain character trait about yourself. And if you don't learn it, one of two things will happen. You will have to repeat it over and over and over again. And that's, so putting it into a practical sense, I remember doing horribly at school when I was y'all's age. And what I didn't realize until later is that I had to keep taking these same classes over and over again. Like, I failed 6th grade, I did it over. I had to take the same classes. I was getting the same book while my friends was moving on to the next books. And I was like, wow. And that taught me a trick about life, which is that you're going to repeat these things over and over, or you will fail in a major way, possibly losing your life, depending on what bad choice you made. Or you might spend years or time in prison because of bad choices you made. So the point is try to get it right when you can, because if you don't, the character trait is still gonna show up. Even when you're an adult, it's still gonna be there. You know what I'm saying? So, like, try to work it out now, and, you know, do it while you can. You know what I'm saying? Why not? And then move on to the next things to learn and grow from. So that's what I would suggest to my younger self.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Powerful conversation, great way to start the school year. I am so excited we were able to sit here and have this conversation today. I want to thank Speech.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Paying homage, because I'm feeling some type of way today. I'm excited, so just know that. I'll leave that alone. I also want to thank Jalea and Caitlin and Dijon and Julian and Johnny for joining us. Thank you for our audience for participation and engaging in this conversation with us. Hopefully we'll continue to engage in conversations such as this as we continue to go forward. It's always our goal to make sure that we prepare our kids to impact the now and innovate the future. And it's clear that our district is working really hard to do those types of things. We'll have more information on the next episode of the District Lowdown with Dr. Brown. As we get the school year started, we'll have some future guests coming up in the new school year. That will be live on Facebook as we typically do. So make sure you're able to check that out. And if you want to stay up to date with the school district and what we're doing in the meantime, please be sure to visit our website and be sure to follow us on social media. Thank you so much for joining in our conversation, and we're looking forward to a fantastic school year.